I had a fiancée named Alyssa who was 24 years old. She was everything I ever wanted in a partner: kind, smart, and incredibly beautiful. Our relationship felt like a dream, and I was certain we would spend our lives together. Alyssa and my twin sister, Emma, got along exceptionally well, which was significant because Emma and I were inseparable. Our bond was unique, and having Alyssa fit seamlessly into our lives felt perfect. Emma and her now husband, Tom, would often join us on double dates. These outings solidified our close-knit relationships, making me feel incredibly lucky. However, the illusion of my perfect life was shattered when I discovered that Alyssa was cheating on me. My world collapsed, and I was engulfed in a storm of betrayal and heartache. The confrontation with Alyssa was intense. She cried and apologized, but her words felt hollow. I was destroyed and immediately ended our engagement, breaking up with her on the spot. Alyssa eventually got into a relationship with her affair partner, and their relationship continues to this day. Before I blocked Alyssa on everything, I saw a post on Facebook that enraged me. It was a picture of Alyssa and her new boyfriend happily hanging out with my sister Emma and her then fiancé, Tom. I felt an overwhelming sense of betrayal from Emma, who I expected to stand by me during this painful time. When I confronted Emma about it, she tried to explain that she loved me more than anyone, but also cherished her friendship with Alyssa. She didn't want to lose either of us. However, I couldn't see her point of view and angrily told her that I was done with her, blocking her and Alyssa on everything. I moved out of our old apartment, got a new place, and changed my number. Only my father and a few trusted friends had my new contact information, and they were instructed not to give it to Emma. Despite my efforts to distance myself, Emma found a way to reach out to me. She called me on a new number to tell me she was getting married and wanted me to be there. Initially, I was happy for her, but then I remembered Alyssa. When Emma confirmed that Alyssa and her boyfriend would be at the wedding, I told her we were now both only children and hung up, blocking her number once more. My father kept telling me that Emma was distressed and wanted to talk to me, but I remained adamant about not wanting any contact with her. I felt betrayed twice, once by Alyssa and once by Emma, who seemed to prioritize her friendship with Alyssa over our bond. The pain was too much to bear, and I couldn't bring myself to see or speak to Emma. I remembered how I had stood by Emma when her college boyfriend cheated on her. I scolded him and comforted her, yet when I was heartbroken by Alyssa, Emma didn't extend the same loyalty. It felt as if I didn't matter to her, and although I still loved her, I was filled with anger and hatred. Amid this turmoil, I struggled to figure out what to do. Should I reach out to Emma, or should I wait until I feel better? Part of me wanted to reconnect, but another part was convinced it was too soon to even consider mending our relationship. The days turned into weeks, and the emotional wounds from Alyssa's betrayal were still raw. My anger towards Emma simmered beneath the surface, creating a chasm between us that seemed impossible to bridge. I tried to distract myself by immersing myself in work and spending time with friends, but the pain lingered, making it hard to move on. One evening, I received an unexpected call from my father. His voice was filled with concern as he informed me that Emma had been struggling more than he initially let on. She was having a hard time coping with the estrangement, and it was affecting her marriage to Tom. My father's words weighed heavily on me, but I wasn't ready to let go of my anger. A few days later, I received a letter in the mail. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakably Emma's. My heart pounded as I debated whether to open it or throw it away. Curiosity and a glimmer of hope got the better of me, and I carefully tore open the envelope. Inside was a heartfelt letter from Emma, pouring out her feelings of regret and sorrow. She apologized profusely for the pain she caused me and explained how torn she was between her loyalty to me and her friendship with Alyssa. Emma admitted that she had made a terrible mistake and begged for my forgiveness. She described how our estrangement was tearing her apart and how much she missed our bond. Reading Emma's letter stirred a whirlwind of emotions within me. Part of me wanted to forgive her and mend our relationship, but the pain of her betrayal still cut deep. I put the letter aside, unable to decide at that moment. The next few days were a blur as I wrestled with my conflicting emotions. Then, one night, I had a vivid dream about our childhood. Emma and I were inseparable, always looking out for each other and sharing our deepest secrets. The dream reminded me of the unbreakable bond we once had and how much I missed having her in my life. When I woke up, I felt a pang of longing and the faintest glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other. Determined to clear my mind, I decided to take a long walk through the city. As I strolled through the familiar streets, memories of happier times with Emma flooded my mind. I found myself standing outside the cafe where Emma, Alyssa, Tom, and I used to hang out. The nostalgia was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but wonder if things could ever go back to the way they were. My reverie was interrupted by a call from Tom. Hesitant but curious, I answered. Tom's voice was calm and steady as he asked if we could meet up. He said he had something important to discuss with me. Reluctantly, I agreed, and we arranged to meet at a park nearby. When I arrived at the park, Tom was already there, waiting for me on a bench. We exchanged awkward greetings, and then he got straight to the point. Tom told me that Emma had been deeply affected by our estrangement, and it was taking a toll on her mental and emotional health. He pleaded with me to consider giving her a chance to explain herself in person, hoping it might bring some closure and healing for both of us. Tom's words struck a chord with me. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, and it was clear he genuinely cared about Emma's well-being. Despite my reservations, I agreed to meet Emma. We decided to meet at the same cafe where we had shared so many memories. The day of our meeting arrived, and I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. When I walked into the cafe, Emma was already there, nervously fidgeting with her coffee cup. Seeing her after so long was both comforting and painful. We exchanged hesitant smiles, and then I sat down across from her. Emma took a deep breath and began to speak. She reiterated what she had written in her letter, expressing her deep remorse for the pain she caused me. She explained how she had felt torn between her loyalty to me and her friendship with Alyssa. Emma acknowledged that she had made a terrible mistake and that her actions had hurt me deeply. As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes, and I could see the genuine regret on her face. Listening to Emma's heartfelt apology, I felt a mixture of anger and sympathy. It was clear that she was truly sorry for what she had done, but the wounds were still fresh. I told her how much her actions had hurt me and how betrayed I felt. Emma listened intently, nodding and apologizing repeatedly. She promised that she would do whatever it took to make things right between us. Our conversation lasted for hours. We talked about the past, our childhood, and the bond we once shared. Emma shared her struggles and how much she missed having me in her life. By the end of the conversation, I felt a sense of relief. While the pain hadn't completely vanished, I could see a glimmer of hope for reconciliation. As we said our goodbyes, Emma hugged me tightly and whispered, "I love you, and I'm so sorry." For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could heal our broken bond. In the days following our conversation at the cafe, I couldn't stop thinking about Emma's apology and the possibility of rebuilding our relationship. The more I reflected on it, the more I realized how much I missed having her in my life. I decided to give her a chance, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. Trust had been broken, and it would take time to mend. Emma and I began to communicate more frequently, starting with casual texts and phone calls. Each interaction was a step towards healing, and slowly the anger and resentment began to fade. However, the shadow of Alyssa's betrayal still loomed over us, and I knew we had to address it directly if we were to move forward. One afternoon, Emma invited me to her house for dinner. It was the first time I had been to her place since our estrangement, and I was nervous. When I arrived, Emma greeted me warmly, and I could see the effort she had put into making the evening special. Tom was there too, offering his support and encouragement. As we sat down to eat, the conversation started light and casual. We reminisced about our childhood and shared funny stories. The atmosphere was relaxed, and for a moment, it felt like old times. But I knew we couldn't avoid the elephant in the room forever. After dinner, Emma and I moved to the living room, leaving Tom in the kitchen. She took a deep breath and brought up Alyssa. Emma admitted that she had been in contact with Alyssa since the breakup and that they were still friends. This revelation stung, but I appreciated her honesty. Emma explained that she had struggled with her decision to maintain the friendship. She felt a sense of loyalty to Alyssa, but also recognized that it had caused a rift between us. Emma told me that she was willing to distance herself from Alyssa if it meant mending our relationship. Her willingness to make this sacrifice touched me deeply, and I could see how much she valued our bond. The following weeks were a delicate balancing act. Emma gradually reduced her contact with Alyssa, and we focused on rebuilding our trust. We spent more time together, going for walks, watching movies, and talking late into the night. Each interaction brought us closer, and I began to feel a sense of normalcy returning to our relationship. One day, while we were out for a walk, Emma brought up an idea that had been on her mind. She suggested that we seek professional help to navigate our feelings and rebuild our bond. At first, I was hesitant. The idea of therapy felt daunting, but the more we talked about it, the more I saw its potential benefits. We decided to give it a try and found a therapist who specialized in family dynamics and conflict resolution. Our first few sessions were challenging, as we delved into the painful memories and emotions that had driven us apart. The therapist helped us to communicate openly and honestly, providing a safe space for us to express our feelings. Through therapy, I began to understand Emma's perspective more clearly. She had felt torn between two people she cared about deeply and had made a poor decision in a moment of weakness. Emma, in turn, gained a deeper understanding of the hurt and betrayal I had experienced. These sessions were instrumental in helping us rebuild our trust and strengthen our bond. As we continued with therapy, Emma and I started to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. We made a pact to always communicate openly and to prioritize our bond above all else. This newfound commitment to each other brought us closer than we had been in years. During one of our sessions, the therapist suggested a family retreat as a way to solidify our progress and create new, positive memories. We decided to go for it and planned a weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains. The retreat was a turning point for us. We spent the days hiking, talking, and simply enjoying each other's company. The fresh air and beautiful scenery provided the perfect backdrop for our healing journey. On the last night of the retreat, Emma and I sat by the campfire, reflecting on how far we had come. We both acknowledged that the road to reconciliation hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Emma apologized once more for the pain she had caused, and I forgave her, truly and completely. We embraced, knowing that our bond was stronger than ever. Just as Emma and I were beginning to find our footing, a new revelation threatened to unravel our progress. One evening, Tom called me with urgent news. He had found out that Emma had known about Alyssa's affair long before I discovered it. This revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. Tom explained that Emma had kept the secret because she didn't know how to handle the situation and was afraid of losing both Alyssa and me. My mind raced with conflicting emotions. I felt a fresh wave of betrayal and anger towards Emma. How could she have known about the affair and not told me? It felt like the progress we had made was slipping through my fingers. I decided to confront Emma directly. When I arrived at Emma's house, she could see the turmoil on my face. I asked her straight out if it was true. Had she known about the affair all along? Emma's face turned pale and she started to cry. She admitted that she had known but didn't know how to tell me. She was afraid of causing more pain and thought that by keeping the secret, she was protecting me in some twisted way. Her confession reignited all the anger and betrayal I had felt months ago. I lashed out, accusing her of being a traitor and a liar. Emma tried to explain herself, but I was too blinded by my emotions to listen. I stormed out of her house, vowing never to speak to her again. The days that followed were some of the darkest I had ever experienced. The fragile hope I had for reconciliation was shattered, and I felt more alone than ever. I threw myself into my work, trying to numb the pain and avoid thinking about the latest betrayal. However, as the weeks went by, I began to realize that cutting Emma out of my life completely wasn't the answer. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and our bond, though strained, was important. I decided to give therapy another shot, this time on my own, to sort through my feelings and find a way to move forward. In my solo sessions, the therapist helped me to understand the complexity of Emma's actions. While her decision to keep the secret was undeniably wrong, it came from a place of fear and confusion, not malice. Gradually, I began to see her as a flawed human being struggling to navigate an impossible situation. Armed with this new perspective, I decided to reach out to Emma once more. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a quiet park where we could talk without distractions. When we met, there was a heaviness in the air, a mutual understanding that this conversation could make or break our relationship for good. Emma started by apologizing again, this time with a deeper understanding of the pain she had caused. She explained her thought process and how she had been paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. She had hoped that by keeping the secret, she was sparing me from more pain, but she now realized how misguided that was. Listening to her, I felt a mixture of emotions, anger, sadness, and a glimmer of hope. I told her how deeply her actions had hurt me, not just the initial betrayal, but the continued deception. Emma listened intently, acknowledging my pain and taking full responsibility for her mistakes. Our conversation was long and difficult, but by the end of it, I felt a sense of closure. While the wounds were still there, raw and painful, there was also a path forward. We agreed to continue with therapy, both individually and together, to work through our issues and rebuild our bond. The next few months were a period of intense self-reflection and growth. Emma and I continued with our therapy sessions, slowly but surely healing the rift between us. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks along the way, but each step forward brought us closer to the relationship we once had. We started to spend more time together, doing the things we used to enjoy. Whether it was hiking, watching movies, or simply talking, these moments helped to reinforce our bond. The trust that had been shattered was gradually being rebuilt, one small act of kindness at a time. One day, Emma suggested that we take a trip to our childhood home. It was a place filled with memories, both good and bad, but it felt like the right time to revisit those moments and find closure. We packed our bags and set off on the journey, filled with a mix of apprehension and hope. As we walked through the familiar rooms, memories came flooding back. We laughed and cried, sharing stories from our past and reflecting on how far we had come. It was a cathartic experience, allowing us to let go of the pain and look towards the future with renewed hope. On the last day of our trip, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Emma turned to me and said, "I know I've made mistakes, and I can't change the past, but I promise I'll do everything I can to be a better sister, to rebuild the trust we've lost." I looked at her, seeing not just the sister who had betrayed me, but also the one who had stood by me through so much. "I believe you," I said, "and I'm willing to give us a chance." We hugged, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. Our journey towards healing was far from over, but we were on the right. In the months following our trip to our childhood home, Emma and I continued to work on mending our relationship. The process was slow and filled with moments of doubt, but we were determined to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. Each step forward was a victory, no matter how small, and it brought us closer to the bond we once had. One evening, as Emma and I sat in her living room, we decided to have a heart-to-heart conversation about everything that had happened. We talked about Alyssa, the affair, and the impact it had on our lives. Emma admitted that she had struggled with her feelings towards Alyssa, torn between her loyalty to me and her friendship with her. She confessed that she had felt an overwhelming sense of guilt for not telling me about the affair sooner and had been living with that guilt ever since. I listened to Emma's words, feeling a mix of emotions. It was clear that she was genuinely remorseful for her actions and was trying her best to make amends. I told her how much her betrayal had hurt me and how difficult it had been to trust her again. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face, and promised to never keep secrets from me again. As we continued to talk, I realized that Emma had been just as affected by the events as I had. She had been living with the burden of guilt and regret, and it had taken a toll on her mental and emotional well-being. This realization made me more empathetic towards her, and I began to see her actions in a different light. One day, Emma suggested that we take a trip to visit our family. Our parents lived in a small town a few hours away, and we hadn't seen them in a while. The idea of reconnecting with our roots and spending time with our family seemed like a good way to continue our healing journey. We packed our bags and set off on the trip, filled with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. When we arrived at our parents' house, they greeted us with open arms. It was a warm and comforting feeling to be back home, surrounded by the people who loved us unconditionally. Over the next few days, we spent time reminiscing about our childhood, sharing stories, and catching up on each other's lives. The trip was a reminder of the strong bond that existed within our family and the support we had from our parents. During our stay, Emma and I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. As we strolled through the familiar streets, we talked about our future and the steps we needed to take to continue rebuilding our relationship. Emma suggested that we make a list of goals, both individual and shared, that would help us stay focused and committed to our journey of healing. I agreed, and we spent the evening creating our list. The goals we set included continuing therapy, spending more time together, and being open and honest with each other about our feelings. We also made a pact to support each other in our personal growth and to always prioritize our bond. These goals became our guiding principles, helping us navigate the challenges and setbacks that came our way. As we returned to our daily lives, Emma and I made a conscious effort to stick to our goals. We attended therapy sessions regularly, both individually and together, and found that the sessions were incredibly helpful in addressing our issues and strengthening our bond. The therapist provided us with valuable tools and techniques to improve our communication and resolve conflicts healthily and constructively. We also made it a point to spend quality time together. Whether it was going for a hike, watching a movie, or simply talking over a cup of coffee, these moments allowed us to reconnect and rebuild our trust. The more time we spent together, the more I began to see Emma as my sister and confidant once again. One afternoon, Emma invited me to join her and Tom for a weekend getaway to a nearby lake. The idea of spending time in nature, away from the hustle and bustle of daily life, was appealing, and I eagerly accepted the invitation. The weekend was filled with laughter, relaxation, and meaningful conversations. It was a chance for Emma and me to bond in a serene and peaceful setting, and it brought us even closer. As we sat by the lake on the last evening of our trip, Emma turned to me and said, "I've been thinking a lot about our journey and how far we've come. I know it hasn't been easy, and there have been times when I thought we might not make it. But seeing us here, together, gives me hope that we can overcome anything." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride in how much we had achieved. "I feel the same way," I replied. "We've been through a lot, but we've also grown stronger because of it. I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." Emma smiled, and we sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset over the lake. It was a moment of peace and reflection, a testament to the resilience of our bond. As the months went by, Emma and I continued to work on our relationship. There were still challenges and moments of doubt, but our commitment to each other and our goals kept us moving forward. We celebrated our victories no matter how small and supported each other through the tough times. One evening, as we sat in my apartment, Emma brought up the idea of reaching out to Alyssa. She suggested that we meet with her to find closure and to address the unresolved feelings we both had. The thought of seeing Alyssa again was daunting, but I knew that it was a necessary step in our healing journey. We arranged to meet Alyssa at a neutral location, a quiet cafe where we could talk without distractions. When the day arrived, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Seeing Alyssa brought back a flood of memories, both good and bad. She looked nervous as she sat down across from us. Emma started the conversation by explaining why we had asked to meet. She told Alyssa about the journey we had been on and how important it was for us to find closure. Alyssa listened intently, nodding as Emma spoke. When it was her turn, Alyssa apologized for her actions and admitted that she had made a terrible mistake. She expressed genuine remorse and asked for our forgiveness. Listening to Alyssa's apology, I felt a mixture of anger and sympathy. It was clear that she was truly sorry for what she had done, but the wounds were still fresh. I told her how much her actions had hurt me and how difficult it had been to move on. Alyssa listened intently, nodding and apologizing repeatedly. Our conversation lasted for hours. We talked about the past, our feelings, and the impact the affair had on our lives. By the end of the conversation, I felt a sense of relief. While the pain hadn't completely vanished, there was a glimmer of hope for closure. As we left the cafe, Emma and I hugged Alyssa and wished her well. It was a bittersweet moment, but it felt like a step in the right direction. We had faced our demons and had taken another step towards healing. In the weeks that followed, Emma and I continued to focus on our goals and our journey of healing. We celebrated our victories, no matter how small, and supported each other through the tough times. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and I began to see a future filled with hope and possibility. One day, as we sat in a park, Emma turned to me and said, "I've learned so much from this experience. It's taught me the importance of honesty, trust, and the power of forgiveness. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride in how much we had achieved. "I feel the same way," I replied. "We've been through a lot, but we've also grown stronger because of it. I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. It was a moment of peace and reflection, a testament to the resilience of our bond. As we looked towards the future, we knew that we could overcome any obstacle as long as we had each other. As Emma and I continued to heal our relationship, we reached a critical juncture. The closure we sought with Alyssa had provided some relief, but there was still a lingering sense of unease. It felt as though a final piece of the puzzle was missing, something that could truly put our past behind us and allow us to move forward without any residual bitterness. One evening, while we were having dinner at Emma and Tom's house, Emma brought up an important topic. "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've been through," she said, her voice filled with a mix of determination and vulnerability. "I feel like there's one more thing we need to do to truly move on." I looked at her, curious and slightly apprehensive. "What do you have in mind?" I asked. Emma took a deep breath. "I think we need to revisit the places where everything fell apart. We need to confront our past head-on and find a way to make peace with it. Only then can we truly let go and move forward." The idea was daunting, but I could see the wisdom in her words. Revisiting those painful memories could be the final step in our healing journey. We decided to take a trip to the places that had been pivotal in our story: our old apartment, the cafe where we often hung out with Alyssa and Tom, and even the park where Tom had delivered the news about Emma's knowledge of the affair. We started with our old apartment. As we stood outside the building, memories came flooding back. This was where I had first found out about Alyssa's betrayal, where I had confronted her and ended our engagement. It was a place filled with pain and heartbreak, but also with memories of happier times. Emma and I stood in silence for a moment, each lost in our thoughts. Finally, Emma spoke. "This place holds so many memories, both good and bad. I know it was a scene of a lot of pain, but it was also where we shared so many happy moments. I think it's important to remember both." I nodded, appreciating her perspective. We walked around the building, reminiscing about the good times we had shared there. It was a bittersweet experience, but it helped us to see the full picture, not just the painful parts. Next, we visited the cafe. As we walked in, the familiar aroma of coffee and pastries greeted us. This was where we had spent countless hours talking, laughing, and building our relationships. It was also the place where Emma had first seen Alyssa after the breakup, leading to our confrontation. We sat down at our usual table, and Emma spoke. "This place holds so many memories. It's where we built our bond, but it's also where things started to fall apart. I think it's important to acknowledge both the good and the bad." We ordered our favorite drinks and spent some time talking about the past. It was a cathartic experience, allowing us to process our emotions and find closure. We left the cafe feeling lighter, as though a weight had been lifted from our shoulders. Finally, we visited the park. This was where Tom had told me about Emma's knowledge of the affair, a revelation that had nearly destroyed our progress. As we walked through the park, I could feel the tension in the air. This was the place where our trust had been shattered once more. Emma turned to me, her eyes filled with determination. I know this place holds a lot of pain for both of us, but I think it's important to face it together, to acknowledge what happened, and find a way to move on. We sat down on a bench, and I took a deep breath. This place reminds me of the moment when I felt like everything was falling apart again. But it also reminds me of how far we've come since then. We've worked so hard to rebuild our relationship, and I don't want to let the past hold us back anymore. Emma nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm so sorry for everything, for the pain I've caused you. I want to move forward, to build a future where our bond is stronger than ever. I reached out and took her hand. I forgive you, Emma. I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm willing to keep working on this, to keep fighting for our relationship. We've come too far to give up now. We sat in silence for a moment, holding hands and reflecting on our journey. It was a powerful and emotional experience, one that helped us to finally put the past behind us. As we walked back to the car, I felt a sense of peace. We had faced our demons and had come out stronger on the other side. The journey wasn't over, but we were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next few weeks were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Emma and I continued with our therapy sessions, both individually and together, and found that the sessions were incredibly helpful in addressing our issues and strengthening our bond. We also made it a point to spend quality time together, doing the things we loved and creating new memories. One day, Emma suggested that we organize a family gathering. It had been a long time since we had all been together, and it felt like the right time to reconnect with our extended family. We planned a barbecue at our parents' house and invited everyone to join us. The day of the gathering arrived, and the atmosphere was filled with excitement and anticipation. As our family members arrived, it was clear that they were eager to see us and catch up. The barbecue was a huge success, filled with laughter, delicious food, and heartfelt conversations. As the evening came to a close, Emma and I stood together, watching our family enjoy. This feels right, Emma said, smiling. It's like we're finally moving forward and creating new memories. I nodded, feeling a sense of contentment. I agree. This is just the beginning of a new chapter for us. I'm excited to see what the future holds. In the weeks that followed, Emma and I continued to focus on our goals and our journey of healing. We celebrated our victories, no matter how small, and supported each other through the tough times. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and I began to see a future filled with hope and possibility. One evening, as we sat in my apartment, Emma brought up the idea of reaching out to Alyssa again. She suggested that we meet with her one last time to find closure and address any unresolved feelings. The thought of seeing Alyssa again was daunting, but I knew that it was a necessary step in our healing journey. We arranged to meet Alyssa at a neutral location, a quiet cafe where we could talk without distractions. When the day arrived, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Seeing Alyssa brought back a flood of memories, both good and bad. She looked nervous as she sat down across from us. Emma started the conversation by explaining why we had asked to meet. She told Alyssa about the journey we had been on and how important it was for us to find closure. Alyssa listened intently, nodding as Emma spoke. When it was her turn, Alyssa apologized for her actions and admitted that she had made a terrible mistake. She expressed genuine remorse and asked for our forgiveness. Listening to Alyssa's apology, I felt a mixture of anger and sympathy. It was clear that she was truly sorry for what she had done, but the wounds were still fresh. I told her how much her actions had hurt me and how difficult it had been to move on. Alyssa listened intently, nodding and apologizing repeatedly. Our conversation lasted for hours. We talked about the past, our feelings, and the impact the affair had on our lives. By the end of the conversation, I felt a sense of relief. While the pain hadn't completely vanished, there was a glimmer of hope for closure. As we left the cafe, Emma and I hugged Alyssa and wished her well. It was a bittersweet moment, but it felt like a step in the right direction. We had faced our demons and had taken another step towards healing. In the weeks that followed, Emma and I continued to focus on our goals and our journey of healing. We celebrated our victories, no matter how small, and supported each other through the tough times. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and I began to see a future filled with hope and possibility. One day, as we sat in a park, Emma turned to me and said, "I've learned so much from this experience. It's taught me the importance of honesty, trust, and the power of forgiveness. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride in how much we had achieved. "I feel the same way," I replied. "We've been through a lot, but we've also grown stronger because of it. I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. It was a moment of peace and reflection, a testament to the resilience of our bond. As we looked towards the future, we knew that we could overcome any obstacle as long as we had each other. After our emotional meeting with Alyssa, a sense of calm settled over my relationship with Emma. The confrontation had brought closure, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were truly moving forward. Emma and I continued our therapy sessions both individually and together, and found that they were instrumental in helping us navigate the remaining challenges. One day, during a particularly insightful session, our therapist suggested that we focus on building new, positive memories together. "You've done a lot of hard work facing your past," she said. "Now it's time to create a future filled with joy and connection." Emma and I took this advice to heart. We started planning regular activities that we both enjoyed. We signed up for a cooking class, which turned out to be a lot of fun. We laughed at our kitchen mishaps and celebrated our culinary successes. It felt good to have something new to share and to look forward to each week. We also decided to take a weekend trip to a nearby beach town. The ocean had always been a place of solace for both of us, and we hoped that a few days by the sea would bring us even closer. As we walked along the shoreline, the sound of the waves and the fresh sea breeze seemed to wash away the remnants of our past struggles. One evening, as we watched the sunset from the beach, Emma turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've been through," she said, "and I want you to know how much I appreciate your forgiveness and your willingness to rebuild our relationship." I smiled, feeling a warm sense of gratitude. "I appreciate you too, Emma. It's been a tough journey, but I'm glad we're in this together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, we sat in comfortable silence, feeling more connected than ever. It was moments like these that made all the hard work worth it. Back at home, we continued to find ways to strengthen our bond. Emma suggested that we start a new tradition, a monthly sibling day where we would spend the entire day together, doing whatever we felt like. Our first sibling day was a huge success. We went to a museum, had lunch at a cozy cafe, and ended the day with a movie marathon. It felt like we were not only healing our relationship, but also building a stronger foundation for the future. Our family noticed the positive changes as well. My parents were thrilled to see Emma and me getting along so well. They had always been supportive, but seeing their happiness gave us even more motivation to continue our efforts. One evening, my father invited us over for dinner. As we sat around the table, he raised a toast. "To my wonderful children," he said, his eyes shining with pride. "I'm so proud of the work you've done to rebuild your bond. It warms my heart to see you both so happy." Emma and I exchanged smiles, feeling a sense of accomplishment. It was a reminder that our journey had a ripple effect, positively impacting those around us. Despite the progress we had made, there were still moments of doubt and insecurity. Trust, once broken, takes time to fully restore. There were times when old wounds would resurface, and we had to remind ourselves of the commitment we made to each other. One such moment occurred when I ran into Alyssa at a mutual friend's party. It was the first time I had seen her since our meeting at the cafe. The initial shock quickly gave way to a mix of emotions. I felt a pang of anger and sadness, but also a surprising sense of indifference. Alyssa approached me cautiously, clearly unsure of how I would react. "Hi," she said softly. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Hi, Alyssa," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "It's been a while." We exchanged polite small talk, and I found that I was able to keep my emotions in check. It was a small but significant victory. I realized that while the past would always be a part of me, it no longer had the power to control my present. After the party, I shared the encounter with Emma. She listened attentively, offering her support and understanding. "I'm proud of you," she said. "It takes a lot of strength to face the past and not let it define you." Her words meant a lot to me. It was a reminder of how far we had come and how much we had grown. As time went on, our lives began to settle into a new normal. Emma and Tom announced that they were expecting their first child, and the news brought immense joy to our family. I was excited to become an uncle and to be a part of this new chapter in their lives. The news also brought about deeper conversations between Emma and me about the future. We talked about our hopes and dreams, and how we could continue to support each other. It was a testament to the strength of our bond that we could have these discussions openly and honestly. One afternoon, as we were preparing for the baby shower, Emma pulled me aside. "I want you to be the godfather," she said, her eyes filled with emotion. "You've been such an important part of my life, and I can't think of anyone better to have that role." I was deeply touched by her request. "I would be honored," I replied, feeling a sense of pride and gratitude. It was a reflection of the trust and love we had rebuilt. The baby shower was a joyous occasion, filled with laughter and celebration. Our family and friends gathered to share in the happiness, and it was clear that the future held promise and hope. In the months that followed, Emma and I continued to navigate the ups and downs of life, always with a focus on our relationship. We celebrated our victories, no matter how small, and supported each other through the tough times. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and I began to see a future filled with hope and possibility. One day, as we sat in a park, Emma turned to me and said, "I've learned so much from this experience. It's taught me the importance of honesty, trust, and the power of forgiveness. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride in how much we had achieved. "I feel the same way," I replied. "We've been through a lot, but we've also grown stronger because of it. I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. It was a moment of peace and reflection, a testament to the resilience of our bond. As we looked towards the future, we knew that we could overcome any obstacle as long as we had each other. The arrival of Emma's baby marked a significant milestone in our journey of healing. When her daughter Lily was born, it felt like a new chapter was unfolding for all of us. Holding my newborn niece for the first time, I was overwhelmed with emotion. It was a moment filled with hope and promise, symbolizing the new beginnings we had worked so hard to create. Emma and Tom were overjoyed, and our family rallied around them, offering support and love. Lily's birth brought us even closer, and I found myself embracing my role as an uncle with enthusiasm and pride. It was a reminder of the importance of family and the strength of the bond we shared. As the weeks went by, I spent a lot of time with Emma and Lily. We took walks in the park, shared meals, and simply enjoyed each other's company. These moments were precious, reinforcing the progress we had made in rebuilding our relationship. The joy and innocence of a new life had a healing effect, helping to further mend the wounds of the past. One evening, as we sat in Emma's living room watching Lily sleep, Emma turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking a lot about our journey," she said softly, "about how far we've come and everything we've overcome." I nodded, understanding the depth of her reflection. "It's been a long road, but I'm grateful for where we are now," I replied. We've learned so much and grown so much stronger because of it." Emma smiled, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said. "Your forgiveness, your willingness to give me a second chance, it means everything to me." I squeezed her hand, feeling a deep sense of connection. "We're in this together, Emma. We've both made mistakes, but we've also chosen to move forward, and I'm glad we did." As the months passed, our lives continued to evolve. Emma and Tom adjusted to their new roles as parents, and I found joy in being a part of Lily's life. Our family gatherings were filled with laughter and love, a stark contrast to the turmoil of the past. One day, Emma and I decided to take a trip back to our childhood home. It had been a while since we last visited, and we felt that it was the perfect time to revisit those memories and find closure. We packed our bags and set off on the journey, filled with a mix of nostalgia and anticipation. As we walked through the familiar rooms, memories came flooding back. We laughed at the silly games we used to play, reminisced about our childhood adventures, and reflected on the lessons we had learned along the way. It was a cathartic experience, allowing us to let go of the pain and fully embrace the future. On the last night of our trip, we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Emma turned to me and said, "I know we've been through a lot, and there were times when I wasn't sure if we would ever get to this point, but I'm so grateful that we did." I nodded, feeling a sense of peace. "Me too, Emma. We've faced our demons, and we've come out stronger on the other side. I'm proud of us." We sat in comfortable silence, the bond between us stronger than ever. The journey had been difficult, but it had also been incredibly rewarding. We had learned the importance of honesty, trust, and the power of forgiveness. Most importantly, we had learned that no matter what, we could overcome anything as long as we had each other. As we returned to our daily lives, Emma and I continued to focus on building a future filled with joy and connection. We celebrated our victories, supported each other through the tough times, and made a commitment to always prioritize our relationship. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and I began to see a future filled with hope and possibility. One evening, as we sat in the park with Lily, Emma turned to me with a smile. "I've been thinking about everything we've been through," she said, "and I realize that our journey has made us who we are today. It's taught us so much and brought us so much closer." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "I couldn't agree more," I replied. "We've come a long way, and I'm grateful for every step of the journey." As we watched Lily play, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. Our journey had been difficult, but it had also been incredibly rewarding. We had faced our past, healed our wounds, and created a future filled with hope and promise. In the months that followed, Emma and I continued to navigate the ups and downs of life, always with a focus on our relationship. We celebrated our victories, no matter how small, and supported each other through the tough times. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and I began to see a future filled with hope and possibility. One day, as we sat in a park, Emma turned to me and said, "I've learned so much from this experience. It's taught me the importance of honesty, trust, and the power of forgiveness. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride in how much we had achieved. "I feel the same way," I replied. "We've been through a lot, but we've also grown stronger because of it. I'm grateful for the progress we've made and for the chance to rebuild our relationship." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. It was a moment of peace and reflection, a testament to the resilience of our bond. As we looked towards the future, we knew that we could overcome any obstacle as long as we had each other. The future looked bright, filled with promise and hope. Emma and I had faced our past, healed our wounds, and emerged stronger than ever. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, we knew we could overcome anything. In the end, our story was one of redemption and resilience. We had learned the importance of forgiveness, the power of love, and the strength of family. As we moved forward, we did so with a sense of hope and determination. knowing that our bond was unbreakable. As I looked at Emma and Lily, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Our journey had been difficult, but it had also been incredibly rewarding. We had faced our demons, healed our wounds, and created a future filled with hope and promise. Most importantly, we had learned that no matter what, we could overcome anything as long as we had each other.